Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're going to explore a frustration that honestly so many of us share. You know the feeling. You work incredibly hard, you put in the hours, you try to do everything right, and yet you look at your bank account and think, wait, why isn't my wealth actually growing? Well, today we are going to uncover the real culprits together. And spoiler alert, it's really not what you think. The actual things keeping you from building wealth are these completely invisible everyday habits. Seriously, you work hard, you pay your bills on time, so why in the world does that savings account stay absolutely frozen? If you're feeling that massive gap between your daily effort and your actual financial outcomes, I just want to validate that for you right now. You are not broke because you're lazy, and you're definitely not broke because you're foolish. You pay your bills, you are not there being reckless, but that savings account just won't budge. And those big goals, like the house, the trip, or honestly just some peace of mind, they stay just out of reach. This brings us to a really interesting, kind of mind-blowing central thesis. You're likely broke because of habits that feel completely reasonable. It's true. The most destructive financial habits in your life, well, they don't actually look like destruction at all. They just look like responsible, normal adult life. We're talking about behaviors that millions of people share every single day without ever stopping to question them. So, here's our agenda for today's explainer. We'll be covering 1, the invisible wealth drain, 2, flawed financial architecture, 3, the psychology of spending, 4, the lifestyle inflation trap, and finally, 5, building your blueprint. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the invisible wealth drain, or the gap between intention and reality. To really understand this gap, we first have to define what a default habit actually is. Because look, we aren't talking about buying mega yachts or gambling your paycheck away in Vegas. No, default habits are the tiny, almost automatic choices we make simply because everyone else around us is making them too. They just quietly bleed your future wealth. They don't feel like bad decisions, they just feel like normal life. And honestly, that is exactly what makes them so dangerously effective at keeping you stuck exactly where you are. Moving right along to Section 2, flawed financial architecture, systems versus willpower. I want you to think about the sheer imbalance and how we operate day to day. We beautifully automate our spending, right? Netflix, the gym membership, your phone bill, it's all on this smooth, invisible autopilot. Yet when it comes to the most important thing, wealth building, we leave it entirely manual. You do it whenever you happen to remember, using whatever scraps happen to be left over at the end of the month. We have literally built a flawless machine for spending while forcing our wealth building to fight for leftovers. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. So the absolutely crucial point here is this: behavior follows architecture. You do not rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your systems. You have to architect your life by automatically paying yourself first. The exact second your paycheck lands, a transfer should fire automatically into a savings or investment account, even if it's just a 10% minimum to start. You've got to do this before your brain even registers that money is available to spend. At this stage, the actual dollar amount matters way, way less than just getting the architecture in place. And part of that flawed architecture is what's known as the subscription link. Look, subscription businesses are literally engineered to survive on your inattention. They use friction, like burying the cancel button deep in 3 submenus just to stop you from leaving. Those forgotten free trials, or that premium language app you haven't opened since 2019. They don't feel significant on their own. But collectively, we are talking about an invisible bleed of $1,200 to $2,400 a year. Seriously. So do a quarterly audit. Sit down, look at your recurring charges, and if you wouldn't manually pull out your credit card to renew it today, cancel it immediately. Which brings us to Section 3, the psychology of spending, breaking the illusions. Let's talk about this massive number. Imagine a notification hits your phone. A $100 item is on sale for 40% off. Awesome, you buy it. Your brain immediately tells you that you just saved $40. But here is the harsh reality of retail psychology. You did not save $40. You lost $60. Why? Because you can't take that imaginary unspent $40 and physically deposit it into the bank. It doesn't actually exist. The only money that truly counts is the $60 that just left your checking account. If you wouldn't have bought the item at full price before the manufactured urgency of that big sale, it's not a bargain. It's literally just a smaller amount of money that you didn't need to spend in the first place. And this transitions perfectly into the illusion of status. On one hand, you have looking rich, stretching your budget to the absolute limit for status cars and exclusive neighborhoods. Honestly, it's a compounding cruelty because there is no finish line. There is always a newer, shinier model. But contrast that with actually being rich. Truly wealthy people have remarkably consistent habits. They drive ordinary, reliable cars, they buy for functional value, and they completely ignore performative prestige. Because every single dollar you spend on looking rich is a dollar that's not working toward actually being rich. To intercept this illusion, we need a way better sequence for our spending. Because right now, we usually let feelings dictate our purchases, right? We buy a car because it just feels right, and then we scramble to justify the math afterwards. But making decisions based purely on feelings costs a premium every single time. Instead, I want you to use this specific sequence. First, acknowledge and feel the emotion. That's fine. Second, run the actual realistic math before you take any action. And third, make your final decision based purely on those numbers. You want to make decisions that you can easily defend to your future self when you're looking back at a bank statement 3 months from now. All right, moving into section 4, the lifestyle inflation trap, the gravity of normalcy. First off, we really have to talk about the dark backdrop to this trap, which is debt. Did you know that over 60% of Americans carry credit card debt? And the average balance is over $5,000 at a staggering 20% annual interest rate? We have completely, totally normalized debt. It's basically become background noise, just an expected, boring feature of adult life. But when debt becomes wallpaper, it stops triggering the urgency it actually deserves, and you just kind of accommodate it instead of attacking it. We need to vigorously reframe how we see this. Debt is a wealth-destroying machine. It is not the weather. You do not just have to stand there and accept it getting rained on. You are not powerless. You absolutely must treat debt with absolute hostility, like a genuine emergency, because financially speaking, it is one. Use the avalanche or the snowball method, whichever works for your brain. Just pick a balance, throw everything you have at it, and reclaim your hard-earned money. Now, once you start fighting back and getting ahead, you'll eventually start earning more money. But here is the lifestyle inflation trap. You get a raise. You finally have some room to breathe. So what do? You upgrade the apartment or you lease a nicer car, and suddenly those expanded lifestyle expenses consume your entire raise instantly. The reward for all your hard work just became a permanent monthly obligation, and your actual financial trajectory, it stayed exactly the same. The golden rule of thumb here, target at least 50% of any new raise directly toward your savings or debt elimination before your lifestyle is allowed to absorb a single dollar of it. Let's wrap things up with section 5, building your blueprint, demystifying the taboos. The very first step in building your blueprint is breaking the silence. Money is so often treated as totally off limits in polite conversation, right? But never talking about money leaves you in the dark with massive blind spots. You don't know what's normal, what's actually possible, or where you might be making a mistake that someone else already solved like 5 years ago. Compare notes with your colleagues, ask your friends for advice, find a community. Honestly, breaking the silence is one of the absolute highest leverage actions you can possibly take for your financial life. Because, well, here is the brutal truth. Financial illiteracy is the most expensive thing you own. It is the root cause of every single bad habit we've discussed today. Treating your financial education as just some optional homework leads to direct fees, compounding losses, and totally preventable debt. But dedicating even just 1 hour a week to learning about personal finance, that yields an unmatched return on investment. And it's not about becoming some Wall Street expert. It's simply about knowing enough to stop making totally predictable mistakes. Next, you've got to translate your vague intentions into a written plan. Having a feeling is not a plan. You cannot measure your progress toward a totally undefined goal. So I want you to write down these 5 exact things. Exactly what money comes in, what goes out and where, the exact debt you owe and to whom, your specific goals with hard timelines, and finally, the immediate changes you are making starting right now. Turning those abstract feelings into concrete math on just a single sheet of paper, that completely changes the game. As we start to wrap up this explainer, I really want you to internalize this empowering realization. The habits that got you here won't get you there. Compounding is real and it works. It wrecks people when it works against them quietly over the years, but it builds incredible, totally life changing wealth when you finally point it in the right direction. You have the power to interrupt these default patterns. So I'll leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Which system will you build today? You don't have to fix all 11 habits at once. No way. Just pick one. Change one habit, build one single system that doesn't rely on your willpower, and kickstart your financial momentum right now. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see the incredible financial architecture you built.